Well, it's getting quite close to that spooky time of the year again, so I thought I'd do something quite unprecedented. I joined a cult. You know, the Bible might say to do otherwise, but what's the worst that could happen? I just got my first assignment. And, yeah, this is gonna sting. Completionism. It's the only act of violence with a question mark at the end. It refers to the act of collecting everything in the game, and it's usually only made for specific games. You'll know if a game is completable just by playing through its campaign. But just because a game isn't exactly a collectathon, it can still be completed, just by different means. But then again, there are some games out there that when you beat the campaign, there isn't much else to do. It's like, whoa, I beat it. But what if I could do it faster? Most of the time, there will be specific things to go for in the game that can be seen from the game's menus. And I'm not going to lie when saying getting all of these plays a role in my enjoyment of the game. I mostly have completionist anxiety. I usually feel that I really want to get everything the game has to offer, and I've yet to find a game that's made me stray from that prospect. And if I did, I'd just flat out quit the cult entirely. But now that I'm in this cult, I think that I should talk about some of the most interesting completion journeys that I've been on. And let's start with one that standardized completed games, as it was one of the first 3D collectathons. Super Mario 64 is a classic of a game, and one of the first completion experiences for most people. There are 120 stars that are up for grabs, but getting at least 70 of them will get you to the credits. But if you're either a real man or a cultist, you'll go for 120. And as someone who's gone for 120 stars on several accounts, let me give you some advice. Just don't. Yeah, a majority of the stars in the game are fun to get and collect, but after a while, it gets really frustrating and boring, especially in the later stages. The earlier stages in the game provide a much more completionist-friendly experience, as you can freely go around these locations, collecting stars at a leisurely pace. Just one slip-up doesn't mean you're done for. Yeah, you might have to restart the level all over again, or be mildly inconvenienced, but it's nothing too horrible. On the other hand, the later stages in the game are just too large, and it takes forever to get pretty much anywhere. This is especially true for stages like Tick-Tock Clock and Rainbow Ride, where getting to where you need to takes forever, and when I do get where I need to be, there's nothing stopping me from screwing up again. And don't even get me started on the 100 coin stars. It takes so long to build up your coin count, and nothing makes me want to smash the cartridge more than when you die on 90 coins. So while the completionist experience of this game has some extremely high highs, it has some very low lows. And because I'll be completing several games, I've decided to give each of them a rating on how fun the game was to complete. I think I'll rate them on a scale of 1 to 6 finger claps, because 7 would have been too much. And as for Super Mario 64, next up, Kirby Airride. Now, you may ask, why? I know it seems odd to try and complete a racing game, and a Kirby one at that, but this game honestly has a really fun achievement system. There are an absolute ton of achievements in this game, all varying in forms of difficulty and variety. At the start of the game, you can't see how to access any of the achievements, but once you do unlock one, the achievements around it become visible so you can see what task you have to perform in order to unlock it. And while some do absolutely nothing for you and are only there to make you go, whoopee, a lot of them give you little things like different vehicles or even different colors of Kirby. Well, now this game's gotta go in the Hall of Fame. And what's even crazier is that there are a whole 3 modes in the game, and they each go with their own respective achievement lists, meaning that you can get a hefty amount of content out of this game if you really try. And while I didn't exactly have enough time to complete all of the achievements, the ones I did do were extremely fun. However, after a while, unlocking the achievements can get rather monotonous and boring. It's mostly because the game wasn't exactly made for completion, it was made for fun, and you know we can't have that here. I honestly found it more engaging just to go through the game casually every once in a while if I need something to shake things up. And while I never hit the same lows as Super Mario 64, it definitely didn't hit as highs either due to the fact that it takes quite a bit to get all the achievements, and I have better things to do with my time, like sleep or playing Smash. Mario Party 6 is a party game. You should have already known that. Games in this series are mostly multiplayer oriented, but there are some options if you're drunk. I want to play Mario! Mainly, there are some unlockables such as an extra character, a final course, and whatever these are. And how might you unlock these? Treason. If you want to get all of these, you pretty much have to drag yourself through the solo mode of the game. And given how many times you'll be playing through it, it gets old really quick. There's a very short selection of these stages, and the final one is easily the best to play on because once you get good at it, but stars will just keep on coming. And you'll have to do the same level over and over again if you want to collect a good amount of stars. And the main problem here is that you get significantly less stars from playing the actual game. The stars you get from playing the main game are chump change compared to what you get from playing the solo mode for a few minutes. And the thing is, I enjoy playing the main game a lot more than all of these side modes. And while the unlockables in the game are somewhat neat, it definitely isn't worth going through the trouble of doing all of this. Pokemon! Where's my gun? I don't really like Pokemon that much, but I stand by the phrase in saying that generations 1 through 5 were easily the most enjoyable experiences. But my personal favorite Pokemon game isn't even a mainline title. It's a lie. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness is my favorite Pokemon game, as it's honestly one of the most unique games in the series, exchanging normal battles for just double battles, and it brings a whole new dynamic to the game itself. And another thing the game does unique from other titles is the inclusion of Shadow Pokemon. These Shadow Pokemon can be caught from other trainers who probably got them off the black market, so just remember, it's not stealing if it's from criminals. There are quite a few of these in the game, almost to a fault. The main phrase of Pokemon as a whole is, gotta catch 'em all. I got 23, does that count? I don't usually go for every single Pokemon in a game. I do go for the ones that jump out at me though, like Magikarp. However, because this game doesn't have too many Pokemon, I think it's feasible to get every single one of them. But the thing is, in this game, you can't just get every one of the Pokemon and be on your way. If you miss one, you'll have to go out and find Mirror B, who will have any Shadow Pokemon that you weren't able to catch. And after you get the Shadow Pokemon, you have to then send them to the Purification Chamber, where they can revert back to normal. But how does that even work? I think the Funky Groove does the trick. But the overall experience and longevity of it all does get a bit samey after a while. So while the game's road to completion doesn't have any major flaws, it isn't all too incredible either. Wario World is actually a very completion-heavy experience. Now, does that mean there are a lot of collectibles? No. Wario World is an incredibly short game, so completing is honestly the only way to extend the game's runtime. There are only 4 main collectibles in the game: treasure, gold statue parts, red gems, and spritelings. All of these are fairly decent given the rewards you get for them. The standard collectible of the game is the red gem, and getting at least some is required if you want to get through the game. They can be found at the end of these Okay, even as a cultist, I found that pretty creepy. Some of the gold statue parts can be found here as well, in addition to being scattered throughout the levels. Now these serve a great purpose if you're either really into Wario, or just want some extra health. Once every one of them in a level is collected, your health will increase by half a heart, which is a fine enough amount. But due to the limited number of levels in the game, the total of hearts is only double of what you had at the start of the game when you collect all of them. And the treasure, while a bit bland, serves a fun purpose, if you're willing to buy an umbilical cord. Once all of the treasure in a level is collected, you have the ability to connect your GBA to your GameCube using the GBA link cable in order to play a microgame from Wario World Mega Microgames. And while that is pretty cool and a neat part of Nintendo history, why do I need these completely separate pieces of technology to play what are essentially extremely small portions of a game that can run on a handheld? Why can't I just play them on the TV? Because nope, we have to get the choking hazards involved. And lastly, there are 5 spritelings in each level, and depending on how many you collect by the end of the game, the type of ending you get will differ. Look, Mom, I'm homeless. And while getting every single collectible in the game isn't the greatest experience, it was quite fun, and it's the only way I can imagine myself playing the game. But enough about Wario, let's talk about Wario. Wario Landshake is one of my favorite games ever made, and for good reason. It took everything its predecessor did and made it so much more grand. The art style, the soundtrack, and the levels got a huge boost in quality. This is mostly thanks to Goodfeel, who manned the project. They did such a good job fine-tuning the mechanics and level gimmicks in a way that made the overall experience feel better than any prior Wario Land game. And this game, while not focused on it, had an incredible completion journey. There are 2 main things to go for within these levels: the treasure and the missions. There are 3 treasures in each stage, and I'm pretty sure the developers got a kick out of writing most of these. These are pretty fun to go and find, as most require at least some thought to get your hands on. And the missions aren't exactly the easiest things in the world either. You have your standard ones, like don't take any damage or collect a certain amount of coins, but there are also other level-specific ones, like try not to get waterboarded. There are a ton of these in each level, ranging from having 3 in a level to yikes, I should get something for doing all of this. what do you know, it just so happens that when you complete every mission within the level, you unlock the background songs of the level in the game's music room. Now normally, I'd be pretty mad at the lack of a grander reward, but because every song's pretty much a bop, I'll give it a pass. But if you do absolutely everything in the game, you'll get a little crown in your save file. But pushing aside that disappointment of a fact, the act of completing a game is still really fun in its own right, because it rarely gets old or boring. And while the game does require you to play through the levels several times in order to complete all of the missions, because you're going for such radically different goals every time, I don't see much of a problem with it. So while there isn't much of a reward for completing the game beyond something I can search up on YouTube, Wario Landshake it still provides a fun experience that it can boot up every once in a while. Super Paper Mario is easily one of my favorite games of all time. It's right up there with Wario Landshake. I grew up with this game, and I've played through its campaign more times than I can count. And one day, I thought to myself, but what if I got everything in the game? So I did just that. Oh man, I'm dead! Completing this game was one of the most strenuous experiences I've ever had to endure in any video game I have ever played. There is so much to do in order to complete the game, and the only reason I kept playing was out of my love for the game. First you have to beat the game, which takes a decent while. Then you have to go and find the extra pixels, beat the flip side pit of trials, beat the flop side pit of trials, then do it again. After that, you have to get all of the catch cards, in which there are 256 of them. And what do you get for getting all of them? Nothing. And there are 48 treasure maps, and you have to go all across the game's levels in order to buy and solve them all. What do you get for solving all of them? Nothing. You also have to bake up 96 recipes by scrounging around the shops for items and tediously going back and forth between levels and the hubs. But what do you get for making all of them? Nothing. If I go through all of this and get little to no reward, why even bother? I really love this game, but it was not made with completion in mind. This game is best played when you're just going for the main game, and anything more than that's pushing it. It's just that every aspect of completing the game was extremely tedious, and while it was fun at times, it never got to any of the heights set by the main campaign. Imagine a Lego. They build things, create things, kill things, they can pretty much do anything, which is why they eventually had a game for themselves. Or maybe a several thousand, I'm not keeping track. These games aren't big budget AAA experiences that would blow your mind, but they have their merit. I stand corrected. Most of them have their merit, but one that stands above the rest is LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. This game is a perfect adaptation of the first 6 Star Wars movies, and as far as I'm concerned, those are the only Star Wars movies. The game cuts the fluff of the movies and manages to make a very comedic and concise game out of it. The game is split up into 36 levels, with each of the movies getting 6 levels of their own. Almost all of these are well-paced levels with tons of stuff to fiddle around with. And that's mostly thanks to the incredible collectibles found in the game, such as the mini-kits. These are a thing of absolute beauty. They have it all. They have red, green, and even a cylinder. These can be found scattered throughout the game's levels, and can be obtained by either winning as a prize for solving a puzzle, or you can just stumble into one through exploration. These encourage a thorough search of the game's levels, as most of them are pretty well hidden. Although, most of these can only be found in the free play mode, which is a bit of a bum. And sometimes you need a specific character to get past certain areas, which means you have to play for a good portion of the game until you unlock all of the necessary ones. And what is this? You had a good thing going on here with the white cylinder. Now you have to slap a bunch of blue on it? At least they didn't change the red and green. Now that would have been a step too far. These guys can be found in the challenge mode of the game, in which you can go through and collect all of these under a certain time limit, which is kind of fun, but it honestly feels like padding. And there's also a red brick in each stage, but that isn't nearly as godlike as the gold brick. You get one of these for completing a level, collecting all of the mini-kits, and collecting enough studs. And once you get all of them, you can get a golden vehicle in the junkyard. And this makes me wish I had time to complete the game. However, there is one collectible that I have neglected to mention. The rank of True Jedi. And how do you unlock such a prestigious goal and monumental title? You screw over the economy. I gotta call my bank. In the game's levels, there are thousands upon thousands of studs, and collecting a good amount of them gets you the rank of True Jedi. That's Mr. True Jedi to you. And while it's not as incredible as the mini-kits, this does get you to explore the level quite a bit, and the sound effects make it more than worth it. So, those are all the things needed for completion in this game. And while it wasn't perfect, as it is a bit lengthy, It's a great time to just blast through it if you have a few hours. Mario Kart is a series beloved by many, and if you don't love it, who are you? And easily the most notorious game in the series is Mario Kart Wii. For me, this is an incredibly fun game to play with friends, but by yourself, you might want to keep a stress ball on standby. This is easily the hardest Mario Kart to get every character in. It's so hard that I just decided to get the official strategy guide to save the embarrassment of looking everything up. First of all, you have to get a gold trophy on every single cup. And that doesn't sound too bad, so I think I'll go for it. The Grand Prix in this game is the hardest it's ever been in the entirety of Mario Kart. The items in this game are so whack-job crazy that playing this alone is just painful and sad. When with friends, you can laugh at how stupid the item balancing is, but when I'm alone, and it happens, I feel like doing unspeakable things to this piece of plastic. And in this game, even the time trials unlock things. In past games, they did absolutely nothing for you outside of self-worth. Now they're pivotal parts of the completionist experience, and it's extremely boring and frustrating at the same time. For one, I know most of these courses inside and out. Oh, it's Luigi's Circuit. So doing these courses over and over again to get a good time isn't extremely appealing. But clearly, I don't know them well enough, because the expert staff ghosts breeze right by me. However, it might be because karts are my vehicle of choice. I don't really use bikes in Mario Kart. The handling for all of them feels extremely off, and I'm never able to make turns as good as when I play with karts. And bikes are clearly the better choice here, because you have the ability to perform a wheelie for a quick boost of speed. But even given that, I never got used to them. But I eventually completed the game anyway with the power of determination and stubbornness. Do I recommend doing it? If you want to explode, sure, go ahead. But if you don't have a death wish, I'll tell you that it isn't too horrible of an experience. It's just got awful. And now we can move on to talking about Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Is this a different dimension? Oh man, not again. At least I brought my dimensional shift-proof baggie. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a game that exists apparently. It at least does that over Mario Land and Virtual Boy. Captain Toad originally got his start out as a playable character in Super Mario 3D World as a fun distraction that would come up every once in a while. These were fun stages, but they honestly felt so radically different from the main game that it was a bit strange, as if they belonged from an entirely different game. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker later got released on the Wii U, and when that happened, in the push for Wii U ports to the Switch, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker got that same treatment. And a 3DS port too, but who cares? Oh yeah. It was a fine enough game on its own, but what about the collectibles? There are diamonds. And they have eyes. Well, now my interest is piqued. There are 3 of these in each level, and they're pretty fun to collect. Because the levels are so small, it isn't too frustrating to comb over every one of them for any collectibles. There are also specific tasks you need to go for in each level, and these can sometimes be a bit challenging, especially when it's to find the golden mushroom. Doing that is about as hard as finding the TV remote. This is a shoe, but that isn't even mentioning my mortal enemy. Time. Oh man, it's I don't give a piss o'clock. The timed missions in this game aren't that bad, mostly because the time limit isn't too strict. It'd give Mario Kart Wii a run for its money if that's saying anything. And once you get to the end of the game, you have to do the final level. A 50-floor dungeon with, oh crap, a tumor. This level was just too long. And for how challenging it is, you could die at any point and, well, you have to start the whole thing over again. And did someone say amiibo? Probably not. This game has amiibo support, as all satanic objects do. And with the Toad amiibo, you have the ability to play hide and seek. And it's a fine enough addition, it's just not anything substantial. But it does make me feel like this amiibo was well spent, as much as an amiibo can be. But there's also DLC for the game, and it's literally the same thing as the main game. I don't really think I want to play it anymore because of that. Honestly, I think I got my Captain Toad fill. But the diamonds are a different color. Well, now I don't have a choice. So Captain Toad Treasure Tracker had a pretty good completion experience. It wasn't too hard, and the time missions were a bit lackluster. But it has an overall good pace that makes it consistently fun. But now that I think about it, If this is an alternate dimension, there should be something here that wasn't there back at home. Other than green. This isn't a Nintendo. Let's talk about Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is a game that I have no particular attachment to, but I do respect it for leaving an incredible impression on the gaming industry. But in 1994, Donkey Kong Country was released for the SNES. And to this day, I'm still trying to find it on a map, because this game looks absolutely stunning. This game has incredible graphics for an SNES game, and it has such a relaxing atmosphere that it brings a sense of comfort I can't find in many other places in the realm of gaming. This game got 2 sequels on the same system, and they're both just as great, if not greater. And the completion journeys of these games are incredible. Scratch that, the completion journeys of these games are incredible, this one's kinda meh. Yeah, while all of the games are relatively similar, the completion of the first game is a bit more frustrating and vague. It all comes down to the fact that the only real collectible in the first game is the bonus rooms, and these can sometimes be a bit stupid on how to access them, and unlike later games, you don't really have to do anything in these, you just have to find them. And given that that's all the game requires of you in order to get 100%, it's a bit hollow. But these 2 games are a huge improvement in the completion department. In Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, the bonus rooms actually have to be completed. Completing these gives you a specific type of currency that allows you to unlock bonus levels. These levels offer some pretty tough challenges and are rather fun. But the one collectible in which these 2 games differ in is the DK coin. In Donkey Kong Country 2, the DK coins can be collected pretty much anywhere, and it's honestly up to the draw of a hat where it could be in a level. It says Nevada. But in Donkey Kong Country 3, it isn't up to the draw of a hat where they can be, which is great because I just realized this is the wrong hat. Instead, they're always being kept by these guys. And because I live in Florida, I know the perfect way to deal with these gators. You throw a metal barrel at them. I was gonna say to yank them by the tail, but that works. So unlike Donkey Kong Country 2, the challenge here isn't necessarily finding the coin, it's figuring out how to bonk this gator from a good angle. But regardless, both of these methods get the job done. And that was the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, and I think most of the games had a good level of variety and fun gameplay to keep it fresh. But that was all the way back on the SNES. What if Donkey Kong Country returned for a few more games? Like that'll ever happen. Get this, Donkey Kong. So, Donkey Kong Country Returns released in 2010, more than a decade after Donkey Kong Country 3. And this game was great, but it had a completely different completion journey from that of the original trilogy. And because this game got a sequel which was largely the same, I'll talk about both of them in the same vein. There are a lot of puzzle pieces in each level, and they're pretty well hidden throughout the level and bonus rooms. But there are also the Kong letters, which were in the original trilogy, but here, they're crucial in unlocking the temple levels, which are essentially the same as the bonus levels from Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, but getting through all of these unlocks one final world, being themed around the sky. And I've never been in the sky before, but I'm not exactly sure if there are any floating strawberries up there. And after that, an extra mode is unlocked. In returns, it gives you mirror mode, and all I have to say is that this isn't a Mario Kart game. With Tropical Freeze, you get hard mode, which is exactly what it sounds like. But easily, the most egregious collectible in either of these games are the time trial medals. Now you might say, well, the gold times in the game aren't that bad. And they aren't. But there's also a secret shiny gold time medal, which is believed to be the developer times for the levels. And these are incredibly difficult. I only did the first world of them in Tropical Freeze, and I got halfway through the second world when I realized I have better things to do with my time. It takes hours to master the movement and level design of just one stage, and some of these have me at my absolute wit's end. The first temple stage made me feel like I was having a seizure, which I might as well have been. So I'm glad that these aren't required for completion, but it still annoys me how hard they are to achieve. So overall, all of these games provide a pretty good completion experience, even if none of them are exactly the same. They're rather challenging, but they're also extremely fun. In all, I'd have to give the entire series a rating of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. This isn't Super Mario 3D World. There's another Wii U port to Switch in a similar fashion to Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, in the difference being that this actually got a pretty substantial content boost. But let's get into the main game's collectibles first. Being in a more standardized style of 3D Mario, the game is split up into levels, with each having 3 green stars and a stamp. Both of these can be found in the same way, just being randomly spread throughout the level. The green stars are somewhat needed to progress, but if you're competent enough, you'll stumble into them, and if you're not, just go already. And the stamps are just there to be looked at and used in the game's photo mode. And the photo mode really isn't something I use very often. Now if I could use these to mail actual letters, I'd be ecstatic. And after you collect all of those, you're done with the completionist experience of the game. Yeah, I wish. In actuality, you have to make it to the top of every flagpole in the game, as well as beat every level with every playable character. And doing all of that is a bit much. I honestly feel like getting all of the green stars and stamps was more than enough. But I didn't mention what you get for completing the main game. Dignity. Not gonna act like I had any before this experience. However, the side mode of the game is completely different. Bowser's Fury is a small open world that lets you explore to your heart's content. All this game requires of you in order to achieve completion is to get all of the cat shines, which are the main collectibles. There are 100 of them, and getting all of them only takes a few hours. And although it's an extremely simple road to completion, it was fun all the way through, even if it did get a bit repetitive at times. And the completion reward for Bowser's Fury was Meowser Jr. This is the stupidest abomination I've ever seen. I love it. And that's it for the whole package's completion experience. And while it did take a while to complete them both, there isn't much to talk about. But that doesn't mean I don't love completing either of these games. They're both extremely fun all the way through. And while the main game does have the problem of forcing you to play as all of the characters in every level, it brings another dynamic to the level by letting you go through it more quickly due to the fact that you aren't being dragged down by the exploration for hidden green stars and stamps. And because these are different characters, they each have their own unique abilities, which makes every playthrough of the levels different in how you tackle the challenges within them. So even though it does have its fair share of problems, completing this game was an absolute delight. Super Mario Odyssey is the 3D Mario game released after Super Mario 3D World, and it's a great fit for the attitude of PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. The Switch was all about innovation for the first few years of its life, and nothing says innovation more than 3D Mario in the style of Super Mario 64 and Sunshine. This was an absolutely incredible game. There were so many different open areas to explore, and they were all really fun to go through. And there are so many collectibles. Actually, let me rephrase that. There are so many of 2 collectibles. The moons and regional coins are the 2 main collectibles of the game, and they're wonderful. The moons are given out for completing puzzles, challenges, and even just plain old exploration. There are so many of these spread throughout the game's areas, more than any other main collectible from a 3D Mario game. The regional coins can pretty much be found anywhere, although being found mostly through exploration rather than puzzle solving. And they can be used to buy little souvenirs at the shops, as well as costumes for Mario. Speaking of which, there are a bunch of these as well, and pretty much all of them can be bought from the game's shops. These range from, look guys, I'm a cowboy, to, well now I'm just depressed. Every aspect of this game was already great, and the collectibles enhanced the experience in an amazing way. They got me to go through these locations and explore everything the game has to offer, and at the end of the day, that's what completion is all about. It's all about getting the most out of a game, and for games that don't have every facet of them polished to near perfection, to a completionist who's played the game for hours, all of its flaws become a lot more readily apparent. It's like, whoa, I thought this was bad, but now I think it's trash. And while I was playing Super Mario Odyssey, I never came across any major flaws or even notable ones. Truly, every part of this game was made with so much love and care put into it. So overall, this game offers one of the greatest completion experiences I've ever endured. And with that, I'm done talking about completionism. But I am still kind of stuck in this dimension, so I might as well play Wii music to pass the time. Well, I got nothing better to do. This is a PlayStation. Before today, I'd never owned one. I've always been a Nintendo diehard. So basically, if it doesn't have a fat Italian man or a pink circle, I'm gonna have to ask it to leave. For that reason, I've never really delved into games on different consoles. However, there are particular games on these systems that do capture the style that Nintendo games hold. Namely, Crash Bandicoot. This guy is a gaming icon, and for good reason. His first 3 games were great 3D platformers that are still cherished by fans. And with me today, I have Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. Now this is one heck of a game. But wait a second, this doesn't look like a PS1 game, and you'd be right. I'd prefer playing this game in the Insane trilogy, mostly out of enjoyment and spite. But for the sake of discussion, I did complete the original game, and it doesn't feel like it's aged a day. Most platformers and games from this era in general are usually hard to go back to due to the dated controls and graphics. And while the graphics on show here aren't amazing, They have a very distinct charm to them. Also, the controls are buttery smooth, even if the hitboxes are a bit wonky sometimes. But I still like playing the Insane Trilogy more. And for my reasons as to why, Nintendo. Almost all of this game's levels felt like they were designed with fun as well as challenge in mind, which made completing this game an absolute delight. There are two main collectibles in the game, the crystals and gems. Those are the same words. The crystals are the collectibles you get just by going through the game. You'll probably run into them even if you don't try. But the gems, please send help. You can find some of these just by discovering secrets, but for a lot of them, you have to break every box in a stage. And most of these aren't too bad, but then you get a stage like Cold Hard Crash. Don't be like Cold Hard Crash. This stage is already hard enough as it is, but combined with all of the backtracking you have to go through, it just isn't fun. And it makes for a part of the completionist experience that I always dread. But there are also the color gems, which are just gems that are hidden more carefully. And when I say more carefully, I really mean, hey look, this wall is a lie. And while the Insane Trilogy does give you hints to where these are at the start of the level, the original doesn't tell you anything. But that's it for the completionist experience of this game. And while it did have its frustrating moments, it was pretty good overall. For a game published by Sony, I enjoyed this a whole lot more than I thought I would. Finally, back to reality. Dang it. I guess we're gonna stuck with this thing now. I would destroy it to quash all evidence of interdimensional activity, but I can play Tetris on this thing. According to this here contract, apparently there's one game I haven't completed called Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I've been working on completing it, but there are apparently all these little gremlin things called Koroks spread throughout the land. I've only collected a few so far, so hopefully there aren't too many. Man, I wish I hadn't sold my soul before knowing that.